From the streets of Brooklyn to the youngest heavyweight champion in history, Mike Tyson's life has been a storm of knockouts, chaos, and redemption. Now, at 59, he's back in the ring against Floyd Mayweather. Or is he? To understand what happened, you have to know what was building up in him through the years. Mike Tyson's journey begins in the unforgiving neighborhood of Brownsville, Brooklyn, a place where survival was the only currency. Born in 1966, young Mike grew up surrounded by poverty, violence, and instability. By age 10, he was already running with street gangs. Arrests piled up quickly, more than 30 by the time he was 13. His mother struggled to raise him, and Tyson himself admitted he often felt abandoned, directionless, and consumed by anger. Fate intervened when Tyson was sent to a reform school in upstate New York. There, a counselor noticed his raw aggression and introduced him to legendary trainer Cus D'Amato. Cus wasn't just a boxing coach, he was a father figure who believed Tyson was destined for greatness. He gave him discipline, structure, and above all, belief. Cus taught him the peekaboo defensive style, hands high, constant head movement, explosive counterpunching, a style perfectly suited for Tyson's compact frame and raw power. Under Cus's guidance, Tyson transformed from a troubled teen into a focused athlete. He tore through the amateur ranks, knocking out older, bigger opponents with frightening ease. By the early 1980s, word spread that a young heavyweight was coming who might redefine the sport. But Tyson's rise wasn't just about fists, it was about redemption. A boy from the streets now carrying the dreams of a mentor who told him daily, "You will be the youngest heavyweight champion in history." By 1985, Tyson turned professional at just 18 years old, and the boxing world immediately felt his presence. He stormed through opponent after opponent, racking up knockouts with ferocity rarely seen before. His speed and power, combined with his intimidating aura, made him an instant attraction. Fans didn't just watch Tyson fight, they watched to see how quickly he'd end it. Then came the night of November 22nd, 1986. At only 20 years old, Tyson fought Trevor Berbick for the WBC heavyweight title. What unfolded was nothing short of historic. Tyson's power overwhelmed Berbick, sending him stumbling around the ring in a now famous scene where he tried to stand up repeatedly, only to collapse again. In that moment, Tyson fulfilled Cus D'Amato's prophecy. He became the youngest heavyweight champion in history. From there, Iron Mike entered a different stratosphere. He unified the belts, collecting the WBA and IBF titles to become undisputed champion. He wasn't just winning, he was dismantling grown men in seconds. His stare alone broke opponents before the first bell. With each fight, the aura grew. Tyson wasn't just a boxer, he was a phenomenon. Endorsements, video games, magazine covers, Tyson was everywhere. He became a cultural icon, the symbol of raw power and intimidation. But beneath the surface, fame and fortune began to expose cracks. Without Cus, who had passed away in 1985, Tyson's personal life lacked the steady hand that had once kept him grounded. The champion was untouchable in the ring, but outside of it, chaos was waiting. The late 1980s and early 1990s brought Tyson to the pinnacle of fame, and then dragged him into the depths of scandal. He was the most feared man on the planet, yet his personal life spiraled into turmoil. His tumultuous marriage to actress Robin Givens became tabloid fodder, with explosive interviews painting Tyson as unstable and violent. Don King, the flamboyant promoter who took over after Cus's death, pushed Tyson into the spotlight, but also into the chaos of money, excess, and manipulation. Then came 1990. In one of the greatest upsets in boxing history, Tyson faced James "Buster" Douglas in Tokyo. Expected to be another routine demolition, the fight shocked the world. Douglas fought with determination, exploiting Tyson's lack of preparation and focus. In the 10th round, Tyson was floored and counted out. The aura of invincibility was shattered. The unbeatable monster had been beaten, but the worst was yet to come. In 1992, Tyson was convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years in prison. At just 25 years old, the youngest heavyweight champion in history saw his career, his freedom, and his reputation collapse. For many, it was the end of the Tyson story, a tragic fall from grace that seemed irreversible. Yet, even behind bars, Tyson remained a symbol. Fans debated his legacy, his guilt, his future. Some mourned the wasted talent. Others believed redemption was still possible. One thing was certain, Tyson's life was no longer just about boxing. It was about survival in every sense, physical, emotional, and spiritual. When Mike Tyson walked out of prison in 1995 after serving 3 years of his sentence, the world watched closely. Could the former baddest man on the planet reclaim his throne? Tyson wasted no time. Within a year, he returned to the ring and quickly reclaimed the WBA and WBC heavyweight titles, blasting through opponents like Frank Bruno and Bruce Seldon. For a brief moment, it looked like the Tyson era was back. But there was a difference. The Tyson of the mid-1990s wasn't the same disciplined force Cus D'Amato had crafted. His personal demons remained. His reliance on intimidation and raw power replaced the sharp technique of his early years. And when he stepped in against Evander Holyfield in 1996, the cracks showed. Holyfield outworked and outsmarted Tyson, scoring a stunning upset. The loss rattled Tyson but set the stage for one of the most infamous nights in sports history. On June 28, 1997, Tyson met Holyfield in a rematch. The fight was brutal from the start, with Tyson frustrated by Holyfield's resilience. Then, in round 3, Tyson shocked the world. In a moment of madness, he bit off a piece of Holyfield's ear. Referees stopped the fight. The crowd rioted, and Tyson's reputation collapsed. The incident became global news, branding him not as the world's scariest fighter, but as its most unhinged. He was banned, fined millions, and ridiculed in every corner of the media. Yet, strangely, the scandal didn't erase Tyson's allure. If anything, it cemented his status as a tragic anti-hero. Brilliant and broken, feared and mocked, larger than life in every way. His career continued into the early 2000s, but the magic of Iron Mike was fading. Fans still filled arenas, but the man once destined to be untouchable was becoming a shadow of his younger self. By the early 2000s, Mike Tyson's career had shifted from dominance to survival. Losses to Lennox Lewis, Danny Williams, and Kevin McBride showed a fighter whose body and spirit were deteriorating. He retired in 2005, leaving behind a record of 50 wins, 6 losses, and a legacy clouded by scandal, brilliance, and tragedy. But outside the ring, Tyson's struggles only deepened. Despite earning over $300 million during his career, Tyson declared bankruptcy in 2003. His fortune had evaporated through lavish spending, legal battles, and exploitation by those around him. The once richest fighter in the world was left scrambling to pay debts. Addiction to drugs and alcohol further spiraled his life, and Tyson himself admitted he often felt suicidal, unable to find purpose after boxing. Yet, Tyson's story didn't end in despair. Slowly, he began reinventing himself. He found stability in family life with his wife Kiki. He found expression in unexpected places, appearing in movies like The Hangover, starring in a one-man Broadway show about his life, and later launching a hit podcast, Hotboxin' with Mike Tyson. His brutal honesty, self-deprecating humor, and surprising wisdom won him a new generation of fans. The man once feared as a monster was now seen as a survivor, scarred but still standing. This reinvention didn't erase his past, but it reshaped it. Tyson became a living reminder of the cost of fame and the possibility of redemption. And then, in 2020, he stunned the world again by lacing up the gloves. At 54 years old, he stepped into an exhibition with Roy Jones Jr., proving he still had flashes of the old fire. Clips of his training went viral, and the fight drew millions of viewers. The message was clear. Tyson, even in his 50s, still had the power to captivate the world. The Roy Jones Jr. exhibition opened the door for something no one thought possible. Mike Tyson, in his 50s, re-emerging as a cultural force in combat sports. His viral training videos, showcasing speed, power, and ferocity that seemed impossible for his age, reminded fans of the man who once terrified the heavyweight division. Suddenly, Tyson wasn't just a relic of the past. He was proof that legends could live forever. The 2020 fight reignited Tyson's relevance. Younger fans, who had only seen highlights on YouTube, now watched him live, while older fans relived the thrill of his glory days. Promoters took notice. Talk of more exhibitions swirled, and Tyson himself hinted at fighting again if the money and meaning were right. For Tyson, it wasn't about championships anymore. It was about legacy, pride, and proving he still belonged on the stage. The exhibitions gave him something boxing had taken away in his final years: dignity. Even in a slower, older body, the aura of Iron Mike remained intact. And then came the announcement that sent shockwaves worldwide. Tyson would face Floyd Mayweather in 2026, the undefeated defensive genius against the aging knockout king. On paper, it was absurd, a size mismatch, a generational clash, a spectacle more than a sport. But that's exactly why it captured attention. Fans didn't care about rankings or belts. They cared about the theater, the personalities, the clash of two men who had spent decades defining boxing in their own way. For Tyson, this was more than a payday. It was a chance to step back into the spotlight on his own terms, not as a fallen star, but as a legend refusing to fade quietly. At 59, he was preparing for perhaps his final act. And just like in the 1980s, the world couldn't look away. The announcement came in September 2025, and the world of sports almost broke the internet. Mike Tyson, the 59-year-old former heavyweight destroyer, would step into the ring against Floyd "Money" Mayweather, the undefeated 50-0 defensive genius. Not in a video game, not in a fantasy matchup, a real exhibition bout, signed and sealed for 2026. The news headlines alone felt surreal. Tyson versus Mayweather. Two names that defined eras colliding long after their peaks, with everything to to gain and even more to prove. At first, the reaction was disbelief. Tyson hadn't fought seriously since his 2020 exhibition with Roy Jones Jr. Mayweather, though active on the exhibition circuit, had never faced anyone close to Tyson's size. Tyson fought at heavyweight, with his prime fighting weight near 220 pounds. Mayweather was a career welterweight who barely broke 150 pounds. The physical mismatch was obvious, yet it didn't matter. The spectacle was too big, the names too powerful, the curiosity too irresistible. This fight wasn't just about nostalgia. It was fueled by real animosity. Years earlier, Mayweather crowned himself TBE, the best ever. Tyson, who revered Muhammad Ali as the sport's true king, blasted Floyd as delusional and called him a scared little man. Those words lingered. Mayweather dismissed Tyson as irrelevant, bragging that his undefeated record spoke louder than any knockout highlight reel. The feud simmered in the background for years, until suddenly it had a stage. For Tyson, the fight offered redemption of a different kind. He wasn't stepping in to chase championships, he was stepping in to defend his legacy, to show that the man who once struck fear into the hearts of giants still had something left to give. For Mayweather, it was another opportunity to prove his genius, that his brain, discipline, and defense could neutralize even the most dangerous heavyweight aura. Critics mocked the matchup, calling it a circus, but that criticism only fueled hype. Fans knew one thing for certain: when the bell rings, Tyson isn't sparring with a YouTuber or a faded journeyman. He's facing a man he genuinely dislikes, in front of a world that will watch every second. Exhibition or not, the stakes feel real. And in the hands of Mike Tyson, that's enough to turn curiosity into chaos. On paper, Tyson versus Mayweather looks like a fight from two different planets. Tyson, the heavyweight wrecking machine, once the youngest champion in history, famous for ending fights before fans could even sit down. Mayweather, the undefeated tactician, the master of the shoulder roll, who built an empire not on knockouts, but on precision, patience, and perfection. It's David versus Goliath, but with a twist. Goliath is 59 years old, and David is 48. Tyson brings power, intimidation, and a heavyweight frame, but his reflexes aren't what they once were. Mayweather, meanwhile, still trains obsessively, and while smaller, his reflexes, ring IQ, and footwork remain razor-sharp. The clash isn't just physical, it's philosophical. Brute force against pure defense, chaos against control, fear against calculation. Analysts are split. Some argue Mayweather's speed, agility, and conditioning will allow him to dance around Tyson, making him miss and embarrassing the bigger man in front of millions. Others counter that size matters. Tyson's fists, even slowed by age, still carry thunder. One clean shot, one cornered moment could leave Mayweather vulnerable in a way he's never been. The unpredictability is what sells it. Fans don't know what will happen, and that's why they'll watch. But beneath the technical breakdown is something deeper. Legacy. For Tyson, this fight is a final chance to remind the world that his name belongs not just in the history books, but in the present conversation. For Mayweather, it's another chance to reinforce his narrative, that he is untouchable, smarter than his critics, and still able to command global attention long after retirement. The press conferences are already electric. Tyson, growling and unapologetic, reminds Mayweather that size and fury don't fade with age. Mayweather, calm and smug, insists Tyson won't touch him. Their verbal sparring alone has become must-watch entertainment, but everyone knows words are one thing. When the first bell rings, pride, egos, and decades of history will collide in ways no script can control. This isn't just an exhibition. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experiment in what happens when boxing's two most polarizing icons meet in a ring where time itself is the enemy. So what does Tyson versus Mayweather actually mean? To purists, it's a spectacle, a circus act designed to cash in on nostalgia. But to millions of fans, it's something much more, a living piece of history, a final chapter in two of boxing's greatest stories. For Tyson, it's a chance to walk back into the spotlight on his terms. For Mayweather, it's a chance to prove that even against the scariest heavyweight of all time, he remains untouchable. The stakes may not involve belts or rankings, but they carry emotional weight. Tyson has spent years rebuilding his image, transforming from a fallen champion into a beloved elder statesman. Yet, deep inside, the fighter in him still burns. He wants to show the world that power doesn't fade, that fear doesn't age, that the aura of Iron Mike still exists. Even if just for a few rounds, he wants the world to feel what men like Trevor Berbick, Michael Spinks, and countless others once felt: sheer terror. For Mayweather, the fight is less about proving power and more about proving control. He has built his identity around perfection, 50-0, never knocked down, never humiliated. Facing Tyson, even in an exhibition, puts that image at risk. One stumble, one punch, one viral clip of him on the canvas could alter how the world sees him. Floyd insists it won't happen. His strategy is clear: outthink, outlast, and outmaneuver. But Tyson is not Logan Paul, and he's not Tenshin Nasukawa. He's a legend whose fists still carry echoes of destruction. In the end, the outcome almost doesn't matter. Whether Tyson lands one last iconic punch or Mayweather dances circles around him, the event itself will live forever. It's a collision of pride, a clash of legacies, and a reminder that in boxing, history is as much about the spectacle as the scorecards. So is this Tyson's final chapter? Maybe. At 59, it's hard to imagine another comeback, but Tyson has already lived a dozen lifetimes, risen from ruin more times than anyone could count, and defied expectations at every turn. If this is the end, it's fitting that he goes out not in silence, but in a fight that the world never thought it would see. One last walk to the ring, one last crowd roar, one last chance to show that Mike Tyson, even decades removed from his prime, is still the baddest man on the planet.